317.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Likewise, I'll be short and sweet on this one, too. Mr. Chair and members, this is SB 319. This is a bill, one of 4 bills that deal with the subject of monitoring foster youth children in regards to psychotropic medications. So this is a topic that has drawn attention, and we have some initiatives to specifically deal with this particular problem. I'll define the problem first. Nearly 1 in 4 children in foster care and 56% of children in group homes are receiving psychotropic drugs without adequate oversight. Now, to get that information, we had to really work hard to get the information out of the Department of Social Services. It took us several months of work, and I appreciate everybody that participated in that. But we got the information, and it was rather interesting, Mr. Chairman, that the difference between a group home and a family care home was an astounding 4 times to 5 times more use of psychotropic drugs in the group homes as opposed to the family foster care family homes. Isn't that interesting? And so we think that in some cases, of course, there's a need to monitor, warrant giving children medication. Okay, we recognize that, but the state's job as the de facto parent of a foster kid, our job is to ensure these powerful drugs do not replace other necessary and effective treatment. So our job is to act as the quote parent, and like a responsible parent, we don't want to over medicate the children. The drug should only be the final alternative after all other treatment options are exhausted. Now, how do we monitor and become how do we do that? How do we monitor this for these foster youth that don't have children? Well, SB 319 utilizes the public health nurses, who are great resources within the child welfare system today, to oversee the medical monitoring of foster youth psychotropic drug use. Somebody that's trained, somebody that's a professional, somebody that can understand the issue and make a proper recommendation. The bill also mandates psychotropic drugs be recorded on all foster youth health passports. As foster youth moves, their medical history and their psychotropic drugs use also moves with them to provide health professionals with access to the important information. The duties required for the public health nurses under the bill qualify for federal match reimbursement at the enhanced 75% rate through Medicaid or Medicare. This bill has no opposition, and we have witnesses. Let's act as responsible parents and find people that really can properly monitor them. That's the public health nurses. So I urge and I vote on this bill. We have witnesses. Thank you.
Second.
So we'll have a motion and a second. I'll limit it to 3 testimonies.
Good afternoon. My name is Rochelle Trottenberg, and I'm a youth organizer for the Humboldt County Transition Aid Youth Collaboration, and I'm a former foster youth that experienced the unfortunate side effects of having too many medications that I was on for too long. The medications were prescribed without appropriate monitoring or with other psychosocial interventions. I didn't feel like I had a voice to be included in the process or to consent to what was being done to me. I want to share with you a few examples of how SB 319 would have helped me when I was in foster care. Public health nurses are one of the few frontline medical practitioners that lay eyes on a foster youth health records and have medical knowledge that is critical in the regular monitoring of our health and well-being. Social workers, judges, caregivers, and others involved in the care of foster children, but none of these people are trained medical professionals. So when a foster youth moves from placement to placement, there are very few sources of continuity of medical care except the health and education passport and public health nurses. This is the place where medications and adverse effects could be documented. A public health nurse is critical in the care of foster youth because they can access that health and education passport, keep it updated, and track critical issues. What SB 319 means to me is that if this bill was enacted while I was in foster care, a public health nurse would have been able to monitor and intervene when medical issues came up related to the cocktail medications I was on. A public health nurse could have tracked when I needed labs for my liver levels, when I was on lithium and other mood stabilizers. Or a public health nurse could have done something about my tremors or when I began to lactate from a different psychotropic medication. There would have been a public health nurse there to alert a caregiver or a social worker that my new psychiatrist was prescribing me a dangerous cocktail that I'd already taken in the past and led to me having to go to the hospital for tardive dyskinesia. In all of these cases, I talked to my group home staff, I talked to my foster parents, I talked to my social workers, but nothing happened. A public health nurse could have been my medical advocate. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. You're going to hear a lot of opinions from people on this issue, but those are mostly paid opinions. And the only voice that speaks from the heart is foster youth voice. So I urge you to remember our voice in your decision making and to let it resonate with you. Public health nurses are critical in assisting and monitoring and alerting the right people when youth are taking medications. Passing SB 319 is the right thing to do for foster youth, and I respectfully ask for your vote of yes on SB 319.
Thank you. Any additional testimony?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Anna Johnson from the National Center for Youth Law. We are the sponsors of SB 319. 10,000 foster children in California are prescribed these medications every year. Several investigations have found that the prescription of psychotropic drugs to children in foster care is typically too many at the same time at very high dosage that are above a daily maximum for adults and for too long of a period in time. Once you start them in foster care, it's very hard. You don't really see it in the kids' treatment plan that they're being taken off of these medications once they're started. This over-medication has led to an uncounted number of foster youth who age out of state care with lifelong disabilities like tremors, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other debilitating side effects. And that's at cost of this type of chemical mistreatment without nurse oversight or medical oversight on what's happening to a child. These drugs are not tested on children, and so every time we administer them, whether they may be clinically indicated or safe, it's a test, it's a trial, and someone has to have eyes on the child, and we prefer that person to be medically trained. We know that in California, the children that are on these medications are not being monitored. 53% in the Office of the Inspector General had poor monitoring. In our own DOR board data, 38% were monitored that were on antipsychotics. Those have the highest risk profile of all the class of psychotropics. So we know about 75% to 60% of our kids are not being followed closely. And essentially, we also know from doctors in the medical community that they're not getting accurate medical information on time or when children come to them in the first place. So they're seeing a child without that treatment history, without their allergies known, without seeing that anything else has been tried before an invasive chemical substance. So we think the solution is simple: to oversee the monitoring and to provide a medical advocate to foster youth in the form of a public health nurse. They are one of the strongest components of our foster care system. And a final note that I will say here is that 319 is not a costly bill to the state. It has a 75% federal match, so every dollar that we spend, we're really investing in youth safety, and we're getting support from the federal government on this. We believe this will provide vital protections for the health and safety of our most vulnerable populations, that of foster children, and we respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you so much. We'll have one more testimony.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Shaniqua Arrington, and I was in foster care for about 16 years. I was a victim of abuse, and I grew up watching people abuse me and my sisters in every possible way. I started taking psychotropic medication when I was about 10 years old. I've had more than 10 different psychotropic medications at a time. I think SB 319 is important because when I was a child and I was a youth, my medications, they wasn't monitored, which led to health problems. I gained a lot of weight. I had health problems, and I almost got to the point where I had diabetes. I also had tremors. I had no one to help me. My caseworker, she didn't even know what I was taking. A lot of the medication required blood tests that were unfortunately not performed. My doctors didn't really talk to me about the medications I was on. No one really listened to me. I was lucky because I was strong enough to fight for what was able to go in my body and what wasn't. But I want to know who will fight for the kids. Some kids are not strong enough to fight for themselves. And I think that SB 319 will make sure that someone is looking out for them. And I'm in support of this bill.
Great, thank you. Any additional witnesses? Please state your name and your affiliation, please.
Hi, my name is Tisha Ortiz. I'm a former foster youth, and I believe public health nurses would really help. They found a heart problem from these medications, and they could do this for other children as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the California Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. As Ms. Johnson noted, the continuity of medical information is a significant issue in foster care right now. We really appreciate the sponsors and Senator Bell's efforts on this bill in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank Mecca, Executive Director of the County Welfare Directors Association, on behalf of the agencies that administer the foster care system, on your behalf and support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thomas Lawson on behalf of Attorney General Kamala D. Harris, and here in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Dressler with the Children's Partnership and strong support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Michael Radigan on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County, in support.
Thank you.
Nicole Wortelman on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you.
Nick Knight with the Children's Law Center of California. We're in support.
Thank you.
Tim Morrison, Children Now in support.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cole Van Way. I'm a member of the Humboldt County Transition Age Youth Collaboration, and I support.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Any witness in opposition? Seeing none, any questions from the member? Seeing none, Senator, would you like to close? I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Assemblymember Thurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Bell, for bringing forward this legislation. Thank you to all the witnesses. I don't know that anybody could say more clearly than you just did how often our systems are hurting young people. So thank you for your courage and for what you share so that we can help others have a better experience. I want to also just ask some questions about how the implementation will happen so that we don't inadvertently fail to meet the expectations of the same youth that we hope to help. And I think this is a great bill. I think it makes a great deal of sense. You know, I hear stories about drugs that are being offered to young people that adults themselves wouldn't understand what it was. How would we expect our youth to understand that as well? So this makes perfect sense. But I want to make sure that, for example, the caseloads that public health nurses are required to maintain will allow them to, in fact, do what is intended. You know, in my limited contact with some of the agencies, it just seems that the caseloads are so high. I want to make sure that public health nurses will actually be available to help young people navigate the drugs that are being presented to them, and if that's been given consideration, caseload sizes.
The answer to the question is we think that we have a pretty good handle, and we think that this will, to supplement the existing core of public health nurses, we think about 38 public health nurses additional would have to be put into the system. We want to look at this as in terms of not just dealing with public health nurses, but dealing with things like court-appointed counsel to overlap on that to help the foster kids. You're going to hear a bill next week about monitoring group homes. The data seems to show that there's, as I pointed out earlier, an inordinate difference in the use of psychotropic drugs in group homes versus other kinds of foster care. So, you know, monitoring the group homes is part of the package of review. And I think, you know, this package of bills is looked at as a, you know, we decided to, you know, go at it that way. So we have kind of a combination. This isn't the only answer. So I view it as the nurses as sort of the professionals that have the medical background that can go in and, really serve as sort of the de facto parent when looking at the medication issues and the health issues. So that's why we proposed the public health nurses. It's going to be 75% federal match, so it's a pretty good deal that way. We think the offsets in the cost would be more moderate use of medications, which we all pay for, of course, because they're in the public child welfare system, absorbs the costs of medication. So there's sort of an offset cost there when overuse of medication is reduced. And if that's the goal, I think we can say that if we're successful, this will probably prove to be a very wise investment, if you want to say it that way. So that's the answer to question 38.
Thank you.
We kind of looked at that way. About 38 nurses would be.
And be happy to work with you on that legislation to bring forward more public health nurses. The only other question I'd ask is about the passports. And a long time ago, I heard from young people that they moved so many times that no one did a good job of keeping track of their health passports, and I don't know if that's still an issue, but to make sure that there is good documentation for the nurses to work with young people to make sure that people aren't being administered something that they've already said or documented is not good or has had bad side effects, as we've heard today. What is the status of retention, I guess, for keeping these health passports up to date?
Well, just to say that the Medi-Cal system and the foster care for Medi-Cal, now we've evolved in a place where we require medical passports. So that means that there's a complete set of records. It's transferable. It flows with the child no matter what county or jurisdiction they're in. So there's a much better way of tracking that. And we hope that the passports are, the basis for the nurses to help evaluate the health conditions and needs of the young people that we're supposed to take care of. There's other legislation that deals with that. I think Assemblyman Stone has some legislation, that Continuum of Care bill. That's another bill that would help in terms of the medical passport arena. So we're kind of we're seeing some great improvements in that area.
Yeah, and if I can just add one point to that we are changing the code in this bill to allow the public health nurse to call any prior treating physician and the current physicians and communicate directly. Without this bill, they rely as a pass-through through the social worker, so they have to rely on the social worker to reach out to those physicians no matter what county they're in or coming from. So this gives them the ability to review and update the health and education passport, but also to seek out and get that information directly, which would be new underneath this provision.
So if the passport's misplaced, the public health nurse can make direct contact with the current physician or the previous.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Bell, and thank you all of you for your work on this bill.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Assemblymember Lopez.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I just want to thank you so much for bringing this bill to our attention. Like a former foster mom, I see the side effects for that medication for the kids, and I want to add it, if it's possible, to add it like a actor for this bill.
Okay, sure. Be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from the committee? Great, seeing this is a good bill and be part of the overall solution. I'll be happy to support the bill. Senator, do you like to close?
Thanks for all the committee's attention and all the work that members of the committee have done on this issue, and urge an aye vote. Thank you.
All right, great. So we do have a motion and a second. I'll ask the secretary, please call the roll.
A motion on SB 319 by Senator Bell is due pass and refer to the Health Committee. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Mays?
Aye.
Mays, aye. Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Lopez?
Aye.
Lopez, I. Mainshine. Mainshine, I. Stone. Stone, I. Thurmond. Thurmond, I. The bill is out 7-0.
All right, great. Congratulations, Senator. You have one more bill.
Okay. 490. Working right along. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. SB 490. Okay. SB 490 deals with the Department of Developmental Services audits, and this promotes audit uniformity for vendors working with the developmentally disabled. As we all know, we have a special session to deal with the crisis for funding of developmentally disabled, including and also including the Medi-Cal issue. Because I know all of you did too. We all worked very hard for funding for developmentally disabled in the budget. This bill specifically would address the financial thresholds for fiscal audits and review, establish clear timelines in which these audits have to be completed, clarifies that only monies paid by regional centers can be counted towards the threshold, making this consistent with standard auditing practices for federal monies, and allows vendors whose audits demonstrate they're in compliance to get an audit waiver for 2 years. This bill modifies a law passed during the 2011 budget trailer bill. And the trailer bill included provisions to save $20 million by doing these audits and increase accountability. Just as a policy committee, I think sometimes when they do these kind of trailer bills in the budget that really are policy bills, they generally, if you want to do a midnight policy bill, it kind of usually doesn't turn out so good. And this is the case in this particular issue. This cost, with an average cost of $10,000 per audit for everybody that does business in the developmental regional centers, it's estimated to cost vendors up to $57 million a year. Now, to date, what have they gotten out of that since 2011? They got nothing. No fiscal results have resulted in that investment of $57 million. So what this bill establishes is a more clearer process. We established some adjustments to create the uniformity with state requirements for nonprofits and reduce the financial burdens on the vendors who, as we all know now, are in severe crisis. As bipartisan support, I vote. We have witnesses, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you. We have a motion and a second already, so we'll take 3 testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Boyd Bradshaw, President of Res Coalition. Senator Bell has been very good at explaining the situation, so I'm here for any technical support that might be asked.
Great. Thank you very much.
Daniel Savino, Association of Regional Center Agencies. The regional centers, of course, are the other side of this equation with having to go through the audits that are turned in. The amendments that have been taken in very much increase the bill in its quality. We've been supportive of this effort for some time. Even going back to 137 and Senator Emerson, still very strongly in support and very much appreciate the Senator's leadership on this.
Great, thank you very much.
Greg DeGere, representing the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration. We support the bill at a time when the developmental services system in the community is crumbling, that anything we can do to relieve some of the costs can only help. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any additional witnesses in support of this bill? Any opposition? Any question from the committee? Seeing none, I just wanted to say that I do understand this bill seek to provide some relief to a kind of a unstable system. So I'm very appreciative for this idea, and I'll be supporting this bill. Senator, do you want to close?
Thank you, and I urge and I vote. Thank you, and we'll see you during the special session, I guess.
All right, great. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Motion for SB 490 by Senator Bell. It's due pass. We refer to the Appropriations Committee. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Mays?
Aye.
Mays, aye. Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Lopez? Aye. Lopez, aye. Mainshine? Aye. Mainshine, aye. Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Thurmond? Aye. Thurmond, aye. Bill's got 7 votes.
Great, thank you. Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you for your.
Before we adjourn, please, we have one more item, item number 2, AJR 17, and Member Lopez have presented the.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and would you call the roll, please?
Motion on AJR 17 by Assemblymember Lopez is be adopted to the Assembly floor. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Mays?
Not voting.
Not voting. Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Lopez? Aye. Lopez, aye. Mainshine? Aye. Mainshine, aye. Stone? Stone, aye. Thurmond? Aye. Thurmond, aye. The bill's got 6.
Great. And there will be some calls.
We don't have any on calls.
We don't have anything on call?
If anybody wants to add on.
Yeah.
Oh, any add-ons? You want to just read through?
On to Hall's bill.
Thank you.
Mainshine on Assemblymember Senator Hall's bill.
Aye.
Thurman?
Aye. I want to add on to Senator
Mr. Mainshine on Senator's Assemblymember Stone's bill.
Assemblymember Stone.
Mainshine?
It's Stone's, absolutely.
All right. Woo.
It's on consent, so we made it easy.
It's a consent. Okay.
All right, we got it.
Thurman on Senate Bill 12, Mr. Bell's bill.
This will be SB 12.
Mr. Mainshine, SB 475 by Monty. No. Thurman?
Aye.
Thurman, aye. And we're good.
All right, great. Before I adjourn the meeting, I'd like to take a personal privilege to recognize my wife, Daisy Chu, sitting in the audience. With that, meeting is adjourned.